All right, welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Do You Do? We've got a great guest today. She's a fashion buyer at a major luxury brand, Brittany. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
Woo!
All
Claps
right,
from the audience.
first question. What does a fashion buyer do?
So maybe I should back up and say like what a buyer does in general.
Sure.
Okay, so basically any store you go into, it could be a retail store where you buy your clothes, it could be a gas station. Somebody decides everything that's in that store. They decide that assortment. They decide if you are getting Cool Ranch Doritos or if you're getting a blue hoodie in your store. So that's kind of what a buyer does. They decide the assortment. What a fashion buyer does more specifically is kind of like the editor. So you have somebody who starts off with a design, and it could be in-house or it could be from an outsourcer. They come to you with the product, and then the buyer decides how much they want to buy and if they want to, of what the selection they want to buy for. And then it's kind of this cog in the wheel where you continue on, and then it goes to stores. You do the allocation, which store should get it, how much, based off of demographics and numbers. And then it goes into the salespeople's hands and then into the consumer. So it's kind of like a middleman.
That's super cool. So I guess breaking that down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
the person who's designing the whatever fashion clothing, they
Yeah.
come to you, the buyer, and they say like, hey, I want to actually put this in your store, your
Mm-hmm.
brand, and you have that decision of like yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, if you break it down, yes. Usually you work with a design team that's constantly producing product season after season.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll come in either like a 4 or 6 times a year, and you decide what that product's assortment is going to look like. So they can build something, but also you help edit it. So for instance, if they create something and it's in a lot of different colors, but you know that black sells best, especially in the New York, New England area, everyone's always wearing black clothes. Then you may make suggestions or edits or kind of liaison with that design team to get the best product possible.
So you're kind of the tastemaker, like of the country. You're kind of setting
of
the
the
trends and
country.
styles. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I would go that far, but I mean, it is an important kind of stop or start
Yeah.
position.
How often are you making like educated guesses about where you think trends are going to go versus like only relying on the data or like algorithms to let you know what's going to sell best?
Constantly.
Really?
And if anyone tells you different, they're totally lying.
They're just kind of making it up as they go a little bit.
Because you're also dealing with 2 years out.
Yeah.
So for instance,
Oh, wow.
I'm buying right now for 2 years plus. So spring in, where are we? 2024.
Interesting. What are some educated guesses you're making now? What do you think is going to be hot in 2024?
Ooh, so let's see. I mean, everyone's still really, really heavy in the streetwear game.
Sure.
And I think it's going to continue through. But it's really interesting to see where the luxury market is going to go with that. Also, the luxury market's really buying into crypto and NFTs. So I'm super interested to see how they're going to integrate that into an everyday fashion, because right now everything is so tangible and based off of like a physical good, but now they're trying to monetize it in a digital way.
Right.
And it's like, does that work? Can that be possible? Do people want to buy like Balenciaga clothes like for their metaverse persona? I don't know.
Just get swagged out
So they're trying to buy
online.
digital clothes, basically.
It could be. Honestly, we're in such a pivotal moment. We have no idea where it could go next. But we have to make sure that product's available if it turns that way.
And it's your job to say where it's going to go next.
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, you always have your stakeholders who are above you and who are really working on that strategy, but I'm working on like the business strategy of it.
Cool.
So what is like the team structure? Like are you working like directly with the head of the company and kind of setting these different goals and trends and whatnot? Or do you have like your own team that you're managing? Like what does that look like?
A little bit of both. So you definitely have touch points with the general direction of like what the CMO wants to do, the chief merchandising officer. And so then based off of their direction and what they're working on with the CEO and also the head of design, then we want to kind of make their vision come to life. And then we have a team also that manages, so they do more of like the everyday, more arbitrary work to actually like get the product to the store.
So how'd you get into this? Like, why buying?
I interned a lot. So I always knew I wanted to be in fashion, but then I kind of interned a bunch in different facets. I did PR and wholesale and merchandising and kind of ended up in buying. And it worked really well because it is that 50-50 of like working with numbers and like business side, but also having the creative freedom to decide things on your own and like have that like little bit of an outlet.
Yeah.
What does like the interview process look like?
A lot of the interview processes for like the job can be pretty long. I think you oftentimes we meet with, depending on your level, you'd meet with like first the hiring manager, maybe the director, maybe the VP, and then probably again with HR. But
And is it like, are they asking you about potential like cases of doing like fashion buying scenarios, or is it more like behavioral type of stuff? Like what do you have to prove in the interview?
I'd say it's more on casework, but they want to hear about your history. So what have you done in the past? What have your predictions been? What have your numbers been? And a little bit of behavioral because they want to see how you buy. Like, how are you making those educated guesses? What trends do you follow that you think are really leading the industry? And then I've also had to do some tests before, also like case tests, but also Excel quizzes. I'd say for the most part, everyone goes through an Excel test.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you're in the spreadsheets, you're digging through. I've got a view lookup for days. Yeah.
I thought it'd be all this nice, like, cool dresses and streetwear, and it's just an Excel
wish
spreadsheet.
it was just that, but on top of it, you have to have a bottom line that is pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
So they're making you do modeling, but just Excel modeling.
Exactly.
That's so bad.
So
That's so bad. Oh my God.
This Excel is not going down any runways, but yes.
Oh, horrible. You've been interested in fashion for a long time. Like, does this feel like you still get to access that creative side of your brain? Like, would you ever want to go into actual design for fashion?
Thinking about it, I think that, I kind of would be open to doing my own thing a little bit now more than usual. I'd say before I was pretty risk averse, and now I'm like, well, seems like the barrier of entry is like a little bit lower these days. Maybe I'll give it a go. But I do like having that two-sided way of thinking and looking at everything. Now that I have more of like a collective idea of what it takes to run the business and create the product, I think that gives me kind of the confidence to go out on my own.
Right. You have the inside track, like, you know what works, you know what's successful. You can kind of like see the trend and then build something within it too.
I think it's about building like the contacts in the industry too, and like knowing who would be good to work with, and who has a great track record, who can you trust, and really like knows what they're doing.
Do you have to be in New York, Paris, London, like places that are very known for fashion? Like, do you have to be in those places to work where you're working at?
When I first started out, absolutely. Like, it was impossible to get anything outside of one of like the major fashion cities. Now, I think with such accessible remote work that there's definitely much more of a possibility. Also, social media has given anyone with a phone the ability to create.
Yeah.
So you can have a whole fashion line, label, anywhere you want. And on top of it, you could start buying for a company anywhere you want too, because a lot of it is not as tangible these days as it used to be. So you can see line sheets, you can do a buy virtually, because we've all had to do it in the past 2 years.
Sure.
So even when I was working for like a French fashion house, we were doing everything remote. I couldn't go in, I couldn't touch the product, which is really crazy to think of prior.
Just seeing all the pictures, and that's all you had.
Buying off of pictures or sketches was like unheard of before, and then the pandemic kind of flipped it on its head. And because everyone's kind of doing okay, they're like, wait, we can do this, like it's okay. So I think it's definitely expanding as an industry to like outside of just the major cities.
That's super cool. So you're looking at sketches, you're doing Excel modeling, like you're thinking about trends, you're looking at data. Like, what does the average day look like for you? Are you going into the office? Like, what are the hours for this kind of job?
Yeah, I'm definitely going into the office now. I think other companies are kind of have more flexibility, but yeah, it's I know everyone says like, oh, every day's different, but I gotta say some of the days are still the same because you're working on such a seasonal schedule. Because every couple months you're having a new product launch, you're allocating it to the stores, you're making sure it's in the right hands, in the right stores, that it's selling well and as fast as it can with that turnover. And then on top of it, you're gonna be doing that again in 2 months. So you want to see like the sell through immediately, and then you're kind of back on the horse, like ready to do it again.
So are there busy seasons and light seasons for you?
Yeah, a little bit, but you're always kind of busy because even when after the launch, you're then waiting to see the results and seeing, okay, how can we better that? And how's the strategy going? So it's constantly like in go mode.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I guess on Trav's question, like, what are like the hours like? Is it super high pressure when there's a launch coming up?
Yeah, definitely high pressure, long hours when the launch is happening. When you're in a buying like session, basically, because usually you have a buy that lasts like a week, and it's just digging into what's the collection and then what are the final numbers you're going to put down, and that's like pretty wild. So you could be pulling some pretty long hours, 12-hour days, like for the week or so. Yeah.
Well, imagine, so like what keeps you up at night? Like, what does making a mistake look like in this? Because I'm imagining a scenario where like Crocs sell out in like 47 minutes and you didn't buy enough Crocs for the store or something like that. Like, is that what like the disaster at work feels like?
No, I think
I think a disaster would be buying Crocs.
I don't know.
I know I might have to
Stylish.
change your example.
It's high fashion. Maybe Balenciaga Crocs exist.
You are correct. We threw out Balenciaga, and there they are with the Crocs. So one of the things that would keep me up at night is actually the opposite. If I buy too much and we can't move that product and sell-through is really low and slow, then I don't want to waste anyone's time. I don't want to waste anyone's resources. I don't want to waste our Earth's minerals. So like we want to make sure that everything is as productive as possible. So if I overbuy, I think that's actually worse than underbuying, because underbuying, like, that creates desire, that creates a wait list, that creates this like exclusivity and luxury that the brands thrive off of. That's exactly what everyone wants, even if they're not telling you.
So do you kind of do that on purpose sometimes?
That's definitely a
Whoa.
strategy within luxury, is to undersell and underdeliver in a way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they want that demand to be so high. Kind of cuts back to like the macro basic idea of economics of supply and demand.
Right.
So.
How much does the environment actually play into decisions? Because I feel like recently there's such a push with, sustainable fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So does that factor into your decision making at your job?
Yeah, for sure. I think that maybe not as much in the quantities, but definitely the quality. Like, for instance, in luxury, it was a really big deal, and still is, that everyone was cutting out exotic skins. So, for instance, nobody's buying like ostrich or python or something like that.
I didn't even know you could buy those. That's pretty wild.
Absolutely. And you can buy them in really nice, expensive handbags that everyone still really wants. But, we're shifting towards more of like a conscious buying perspective.
Interesting. So when you were first getting started out in this, like, what's hard about breaking into this industry and this job? Like the contacts, it sounds like that you need in industry, like just learning and predicting, but like what were some of those learnings that you had in the first like year when you broke into this?
Yeah, I think breaking in is kind of tough, especially because I didn't come from a fashion family or a fashion background, and I lived in Georgia and Florida, so it wasn't like quite the metropolis of...
It's not Milan or Paris.
Not quite Milan or Paris. People, maybe have cowboy boots rather than they have Croc bags. So that just making sure that I got myself into a city that had the opportunities, I think was one of the biggest starting points for me.
And do you have to go to a certain kind of like school, or do you have to have training to do this?
Not really. Interns and like interning or internships, I think is like the most useful and on the job, like quick learning that you could get from this position. I'll say I did happen to have like a business/fashion degree, but I don't think that's required by any means. I think they kind of look more towards like your internships, or even if you start your own website, if you have your own blog, if you have sold things in the past, what does that look like? And you can really make projects like your resume for something in fashion.
Yeah, what's like the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone who does want to break into it?
Intern. Like
Okay.
intern as much as possible. And if you don't have an internship available like near you, go work in a retail store, because they love to have that experience. I wasn't anywhere near a city that had like a fashion internship or anything like crazy like in the luxury industry, but I went and worked at a luxury store. And even sometimes those stores will hire internally, or having that on your resume, they know what the customer wants. They've seen what the customer is and what they're buying. So it kind of gives you that like little leg up.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so like, where do you go from here? Like CMO, is that the next step? Like running the whole thing, or is it like actually going and designing your brands? Like where does this typically start to branch off for somebody in your position?
I mean, hopefully I can kind of do a little bit of both for now. There's some ladder climbing I've got to do still.
Is it pretty corporate once you get inside that organization? Like a little bit of internal politics?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it just depends. People can be there for many years, or there's can be quick turnover. You kind of don't know what the position's going to be like in another year from now, or where the brand's going to be at. There's a lot changing constantly. So I think that that's one exciting like opportunity that you always have something around the corner. You may not know what it is yet though.
Yeah. All right. I got a less serious question to ask you. Devil Wears Prada. How much of it is fact? How much of it is just fiction?
So much is real.
Oh,
And
really? Okay.
yes, yeah, people ask me this actually all the time, and a lot of it is real. I know that they're like, "Oh, it's exaggerated." Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a satire, like it's exaggerated, but when you get to the basis, that happens, and that was really somebody's assistant that they used their experience to create that
Yeah.
Wow.
that book and then the movie.
Damn, that's crazy. I don't think I could handle
Yeah,
that.
no. I think we've established well into the show that we can't handle pressure at all.
But it also begs the question, like, why do we handle it? Like,
Yeah, why do we
the
put up with
why
it?
behind it is pretty obtruse to me.
So that's actually an interesting take. And like, I've watched a few documentaries about fashion, like kind of the day of or like week before a show or something. And it seems like so intense and so high pressure, like almost to the point of toxicity. Does it feel like that culture is changing at all within the industry, or is it still kind of that cutthroat environment?
It's definitely still present, I'll give you that. But I've seen some change and evolution over the years that I really love. And I want to say, as somebody who has seen some negativity or that, that intense culture, I personally want to like fight to make sure that it is more inclusive, that it is a more grounded and balanced environment.
Sound like a good boss.
You have to ask my
You're
coordinator.
hiring?
Are you seeing people like being vocal about that now? Or is it sort of like you just pay your dues, that's how it goes, and you just accept that?
I think that people are being more vocal about it because, for instance, now companies will be like, yeah, we know the culture used to not have the best reputation behind it. And them even admitting that, I think, is a big step. Because before it was just like, we're here, you know what it is, like, you know what you're getting into, let's go. Now they're like, we're really trying to, make sure our employees are taken care of.
Yeah. Make it a good place to work.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Well,
It sounds like a given, but you'd be surprised.
yeah. So, okay. if Shrey and I were to buy something right now,
Yeah.
that was going to make us look really, really cool,
Ooh.
what should we be buying?
And
what's going to make us hip?
What should we also avoid
Yeah.
buying?
Oh, wow. I don't know. See, like fashion and like style and is so personable. Like, for instance, I love bucket hats, and right now I'm buying a bunch of Dunks. Don't ask me why, but they're just like, I wouldn't suggest that for somebody else though. I don't know.
But is there like something you've seen, particularly, we'll say for males and females, where you're like, ooh, that's a great like fashion look, or like, ugh, that looks bad?
I will say
It's really simple.
oh, I don't know if I've seen too many oohs lately. I mean, I guess I have. We're in New York. It's a hit or miss. But for something that has been great, especially in men's fashion, is how comfortable men are getting with wearing jewelry. And I think it is like the coolest look. Like chains, rings, bracelets, like get into it. Like all about it.
Our producer's a bracelet guy.
Love.
He's also a ring guy.
A recent ring guy, as I've been told.
So is it true that you can't trust a man who wears shorts that go below his knees?
I mean, I don't.
Where did you hear that?
It's a common saying.
Is it?
I don't know.
Okay, I will say one thing that everyone says is a cargo pant. I love a cargo pant, guys. I'm not talking about like the old like early 2000 cargo pant, but like a fresh cargo pant, probably tapered at the ankle for a man. Great look. Should get into it too.
Actually, just getting something that fits seems like
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest
Wow.
piece of
Yes. Okay. The for men's fashion is actually that things just don't fit. That they like have a really wide leg pant or this is gonna sound weird, but like pants that don't fit their hips or like their waist. I don't know. It can touch your skin. It's okay.
Okay, yeah, it's like a little too baggy.
Yeah.
No, like if it's intentionally bag, I guess it's a really weird like middle ground I'm going for. But
Yeah.
if it's intentionally baggy, that makes sense.
Okay,
If
yeah.
it's like just an
weird
ill
in-between.
fit, like just straight tube of like a suit or a pant, I think that's a pretty big eh.
Okay, what about for female fashion?
Female fashion, I mean, it runs the gambit. I think anyone in general can pull anything off. It's just like having the confidence to do it. And maybe like a little bit of styling to do it with.
All right, let's get Crocs.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
All right, well, hold on.
She said I could pull them off.
we might
Yeah,
have.
you did say it's all about the confidence.
I have it on camera.
All right, yeah, that's true. Oh crap! Don't. I'm like, don't repeat this, but maybe like even you could pull off Crocs if you were like really confident and cool with it and had like a good fit, like with it. It can't be like a Croc and I don't know.
Cargo pants. I'm inspired.
Okay, it can't be a Croc and an ill-fitting suit. Okay,
Okay.
can I get that?
Crocs and
Yeah.
suits is no, that's not gonna happen. Oh man. On that inspirational note, any more questions about fashion buying?
No, I think I'm good. I know what to go buy now.
Yeah, we're gonna look really fresh for the next podcast. It's gonna be good. We're just gonna
Jewelry,
be showing our Crocs above the table a little bit.
Well-fitted pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to the tailor. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Britt, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Woo. Cool.
Boom.
That's a wrap. Yeah.